Hey everyone, it's Emily and welcome to my channel. Today I'm building a house that I had so much fun doing and I just kind of randomly decided to do one day, and I'm not even sure when I'm going to be able to post this because I didn't have it like worked into my schedule at all. I just kind of felt like I was in the mood to build this house, but obviously it's the house from Rick and Morty. So if you've seen that show, then hopefully you can tell me if you can like recognize certain things in the house or if you think I did a good job. I think it's pretty decent, but there are definitely some things that are not quite right. And I think that's just because the floor plan is always really hard to do in a cartoon house because you don't really know what the inside is exactly like, even though there are tons of pictures online of like things that people have kind of put together as the floor plan. I had like 2 different reference images that I used for the floor plan. So when we get to like me starting to get into the floor plan, I might like pop those on the screen or something, or maybe I'll just do that now since we're just kind of working on the outside of the house. So yeah, I had those 2 reference pictures to go off of, and I had a couple different ones of the house that I used. I basically built the whole outside of the house from one reference picture, and then I ended up modifying it from some other ones. So yeah, that was interesting. And trying to get this basketball hoop where it was supposed to be, it's not functional, but it is more accurately in the place that it is on the house. So I kind of went with that, and I also went back and forth between doing siding or a solid color for the house, and since it is a cartoon house, I thought that it just looked more like the actual house when it had the what's it called? Just the paint on the house instead of siding. So we ended up going with that. We changed it to a different color, one that's a little bit brighter and a lighter color. But yeah, we do go with some regular wall paint on the outside. And part of what made me want to build this house, I watch a lot of emisimsYT's videos, and recently she's been doing a lot of like cartoon houses, and it just looks like so much fun to redo a cartoon in The Sims. And she's been doing a lot of like classic like childhood fave cartoons. If you like grew up, if you were like born in like the late 90s and grew up like early 2000s, then she's been doing a lot of the houses from cartoons that you might have watched if you grew up then. But this is one of my favorite shows now, and it's definitely not a kid's cartoon. Rick and Morty is 100% in adult cartoons. So if you haven't seen it before and you're younger, I wouldn't really recommend watching it because it's not super family, it's not family friendly, like it's just not, but it's a great show and I think it's really funny. So I wanted to do the house, and I also have another house from a show that I really like that I've been thinking of doing. So if you like these kind of recreations of TV show houses, then I might do that too. Also, that little back part that I added, I saw one reference picture that had their like back deck in that area, but then I saw another picture that put it in a totally different spot, so that ends up moving. And ooh, this part of the house was really hard to do because I was at a point where I felt like the front of the house and like the exterior of the house looked as good as it was gonna get, and like I was really happy with it, but trying to get these bedrooms to fit was so hard, and I'm not even sure if one of the rooms is completely functional, but we'll get to that in a second. We are working on the second floor first, and we're starting with, we start with Beth and Jerry's room. That's the parents. If you don't know anything about Rick and Morty, I guess I can kind of give you a little like synopsis of the show or just like the general premise. But basically Rick is like this mad scientist guy, and he's kind of crazy. He's like an alcoholic. He's just like ridiculous. And he has his little like part of the garage, and he does all this like crazy science stuff, and he is the grandfather of Morty, who is like a teenager. He's in high school-ish, and he's not the brightest bulb in the bunch, but he always ends up going on these adventures with Rick, and Rick's always trying to like teach him something or something like that. I don't know. Their relationship's really funny. So there's that. And then Jerry and Beth are are Morty's parents, and Beth is I can't get these characters' names straight, but Beth is Rick's daughter. So there's like that whole thing, and basically Rick hates Jerry. So then there's this whole thing of like he hates his son-in-law, and like there's that whole thing, and Jerry's always trying to like convince Beth to put Rick in a home instead of living with them. So there's like that aspect of the story. And then there's Summer, who is Morty's like slightly older sister. I think they're both supposed to be in high school, but I'm guessing Summer is like 1 or 2 years older than Morty. And a lot of times she gets kind of like left out of these adventures, but there are a couple episodes where she gets featured a lot more. And one of my favorite ones is Morty's Mind Blowers. If you've seen season 3, it's like one of the last episodes in that season. I think it's like season 3, episode 8. I just looked it up because I was trying to come up with some of my other favorite episodes, but Morty's Mind Blowers is the only one that I actually know the episode name of off the top of my head. So yeah, that's a good one. I really like that one a lot. And basically, what's her face? Summer. Summer ends up kind of like saving the day in that one. It's really funny. But yeah, there's that. And now we're doing Jerry and Beth's room. It has all the furniture that's supposed to be in their room, but it's not really in the same like orientation that their room actually is in when I looked at some different angles of it. But I couldn't really extend the room and like do different things with the shape of the house because it would have messed up how it looked from the outside. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to work with what I've got. I'm going to put as similar objects as I can in this house, and then the rest of it, like as long as I have all of the items that are in each room, that was kind of good enough for me, at least when it came to the bedrooms. The downstairs, I feel like I did a better job of accurately placing things, but the bedrooms upstairs are a little bit tricky, but we only have 3 of them. I would say Rick's bedroom is probably the most accurate, and Morty's bedroom is pretty accurate too, but one thing that I couldn't really do with this house was both of the kids have laptops that are just kind of like sitting around their rooms in some of the pictures that I was using to like reference for this. So obviously we don't have laptops in The Sims 4, so they did both get desks with like computers on them. Luckily they both had desks in their room anyway, so it wasn't too hard to like fit that in. But yeah, that was something that's not like, it's not that big of a deal, but I just thought I'd mention it in case I don't know how many like reference pictures I'm going to show you guys or like insert in this, but in case I do, yeah, that's why that's different. But also, oh, this is my huge issue with Summer's room. So her room is like 3 wide and her bed goes like in that direction in the room the way that I had it, but you can't walk past it because it's like 3 wide. So I kind of shoved it into the wall, but I still don't know if Sims can get around it. I think in a minute we'll get to the final orientation of her bedroom because at this point I was like, okay, I just need to like do something, and then I was like, maybe I can extend it and it'll work, but then I was like, no, it's gonna look awful from the front, and I really liked how it looked from the front, so I didn't want to do that. So I extended both of their rooms like further into the backyard a little bit, and then there's me pushing the bed into the wall. But I thought about kind of like carving out part of Morty's room, but then I realized that he needs all of the space in his room, so I couldn't just like knock out a chunk of it. So yeah, we just pushed the bed frame into the wall, and we have those pillows as kind of like a faux headboard, and she has a bunch of shelves over her bed that have like purses on them, so I just thought I'd use that kids room shelf with a purse hanging from it and then put some extra stuff up on top of the shelf. And she had this weird like blue rug. It was supposed to be like past the end of her bed, so that's not really where it is in the show, but I did the best that I could with her room, and I did get some good posters in here that ended up being pretty close to the posters she had in her room. At least the arrangement of them is very similar, so I was very happy about that. And now we're getting in her desk before we move on to Morty's room. And the one thing about his room that really bothered me is that he has this green carpet, and it's like a bright green, but we don't have any solid colored carpet in the game that is bright green. I mean, that's not usually an issue that I have. Like, I would never, ever, ever touch bright green carpet in the game, like in my life. But for the purpose of creating a cartoon house, I didn't have it. So I think I ended up keeping that patterned one. I might change it to the darker one. I'm not totally sure. But yeah, here I was trying to figure out what to do because I didn't want to extend the bottom floor anymore because that was already so big down there. We ended up having a little bit too much space in some of the rooms, so yeah, I didn't want to extend that anymore, so I put some columns under this like extra section of the house. And Morty's room, the curtains, I didn't have any like reference pictures that really showed the curtains in his room, so I just kind of put in those blinds. I felt like he wouldn't have super exciting ones, and he had a lot of like stuff on his walls, like cracks and things, so I put those from the vampire pack in there. I never get to use those, so that was kind of cool. And he also has this picture of like a girl on the beach in his room, and we don't really have a picture like that in the game, but I thought the girl like riding the rocket ship was a good representation of that. And he also had a silly like he had some kind of silly lamp that was like an animal, so I gave him the panda one. And he also had a space rug, so of course he got that in there. And his laptop was on his bed in the picture I was looking at, but I noticed he also had a red desk in the corner of his room, so I just chucked a computer on there, and I gave him a little robot light because he actually had a spaceship thing on his desk, and the closest thing we had to that was a different— oh no, I gave him a robot toy, or is that just like a little statue decoration? I don't really know. But anyway, obviously this took me a really long time to do. Like, this took me so much longer than most of my house builds would, and even if I built a house this size normally, I don't think that it would have taken me this long. But because I was going back and forth between reference pictures, it took me such a long time. Like, this video is much longer than videos that I normally do. And usually I try to keep my builds like under 20 minutes, like I aim for 15 minutes-ish, and if it's an apartment or a small house, I want it to be like under 15 minutes for sure. So doing like, just seeing how long it took me to do this was kind of crazy. It took me 3 hours, and that's because I was trying to look through all the objects in the catalog and make sure that I wasn't missing something that would have been better suited. Like, I wanted to use the best possible object for each thing that I was trying to recreate. So yeah, it took me a while to do this, but because even though it took me a while, I did do it pretty slowly, so I was able to speed it up a lot more than I normally speed up my videos, so that kind of helped a little bit in making it a reasonable amount of time for you guys to watch. So yeah, there was that. And there's actually, I think that chair is supposed to be a recliner, the one that I had there, but I think the colors of most of the items that I picked matched pretty well with the regular ones, and that was pretty nice. And also where I have all of that sports equipment in the corner, that was actually where I think it was like Jerry's golf clubs were over there, but we don't have golf clubs in the game, so I just put a bunch of sports equipment in the corner, and that's kind of how I represented that. So yeah, and I also saw in one reference picture I was looking at, the wall behind that desk was that deep red color, but I didn't want to make the whole room that deep red color, so I kept it to 2 accent walls, and then I made the rest of the walls beige. Just because I thought it was a little overwhelming to look at that whole room and see it as red. We do have an entirely green kitchen though, so that's a little bit jarring, but it's there, it exists. That's how the kitchen looks in the show, and I had multiple views of that, so I saw that's how the entire kitchen was supposed to be and left it at that. Also, I didn't think that they had a laundry room, so in that little area next to the bathrooms, I added like a laundry section. You can't really see it because of the way that the angle is with the wall there, but then I realized when I got to the garage that their laundry stuff is actually in the garage, but I ended up putting just a washing machine in there because one picture that I was looking at, you could see like a sink and a washing machine next to each other, but you didn't really see anything else. So I thought maybe they have like their nice laundry room in the house, but we just never see it. And then they have like their broken thing in the garage, and maybe like Rick is supposed to be fixing it or something. I don't know. So that's what I ended up doing with that situation. And I changed all of the archways to these bigger ones from Cats and Dogs, I think is what they're from, because when I was looking at the pictures, I realized that they are kind of like rounded archways, and they are pretty big. So these definitely made the house look more open and more like the actual house. And also they have like a yellow tablecloth over their table, so we don't have any tablecloths on tables except like the really fancy ones, so they have a pretty fancy dining table in my opinion, but it's okay, it's what they've got. And this room has this god-awful brown carpet. I really hate it, but it's okay, all in the name of recreating a TV show. But Ooh, also, I can talk about some of my other favorite episodes because we have Morty's Mind Blowers. That's like my all-time favorite one. I could watch that like a million times and never get sick of it. And then also the Pickle Rick one, really good, highly recommend it. And the Get Swifty one, that's just like a classic Rick and Morty episode. And it's a good one. It's not my favorite by any means. That's why it's kind of like an honorable mention, I guess, as far as my favorites go. But ooh, one thing that was really, really like extra hard for me was getting the furniture in this room right. Like trying to pick furniture that was the right colors, because they have this like super ugly yellow rug, but we don't have any rugs that really match that like awful yellowness. And they also have this like mint colored couch. I think the couch is decently representative just because it is mint for the most part, but it has like a gray backing on it, which their couch is just like completely mint. And then their coffee table, like all of their wood tones aren't like matched or anything, but we also don't have any in the game that really match theirs. And when you try to mismatch them in the game, I feel like it ends up looking like extra bad. So that was really hard for me to figure out. And we actually I think we make this room like one tile bigger because I realized that there was an extra chair. I was looking at a reference picture that was like of the floor plan of the house, and it had most of the furniture in it, but when I started looking at other pictures of like each room individually, I think the living room was the first room that I did this for. So when I looked up pictures of their living room, I saw that there was this like blue armchair that wasn't in the floor plan that I had been looking at, so I had to somehow squeeze that in, so I ended up making the room bigger to accommodate for that. And also there's like that what's it called, there's that bookshelf there, but then there's also supposed to be like another table that's just as long next to it. Honestly, I probably should have made this room like 2 tiles bigger, but from the outside of the house, this was more of like how it actually was. So I don't know, that was kind of hard to figure out. This room is probably the one that it's like close enough, but it's not right. It should be a little bit different, but that's okay. The kitchen is pretty, no, I took some creative freedom with the kitchen and did some different things with the cabinets. Well, no, I almost did. I almost took like a lot of creative freedom with the kitchen because I wanted it to look nice, but then I was like, no, I need to try to do this the right way. So I fixed it a little bit, but there are a couple of things in the kitchen that are not quite the way they actually are. Ooh, here's where I started fixing the living room situation though. I ended up using that super, super ugly, I would never in a million years use it, rug from City Living, I think. I sized it up, and then I picked a coffee table that wasn't a square one because the floor plan that I was looking at had like a square coffee table, but then other like reference pictures I saw it didn't really look like it had to be a square coffee table. So yeah, I just ended up going with a regular one because it had better wood colors on it. And then here I was trying to replace the couch because I wanted one that was more of like a solid light green color, but even then, like, there aren't any colors in the other swatches that are that mint green, and this couch definitely fit that more in my opinion. So yeah, I don't know, I thought about this a lot. Like usually in my own builds, when I'm just like thinking of stuff out of my head, it's like I just do whatever looks good in that room as I feel like doing it, but it was kind of like a fun challenge to build something and try to pick like furniture that looked exactly like the one in the cartoon. I think that trying to do my real house in The Sims would stress me out a lot because I obviously have like a physical object in front of me, but seeing it as like a cartoon representation and then trying to find the closest thing in The Sims, which is kind of like a different type of cartoon representation, is like not so frustrating. But I think that I would like pull my hair out if I tried to build my real house, especially after the amount of time it took to do this. I can't imagine how long it would take me to try to make that happen. So maybe someday. Oh, also I thought that there was a little pink chair over there, but then this is where I remembered that they have a dog. They have a little dog named Snuffles, and in every picture of him that I saw online, there was like, it was like him peeing on the floor. Like, he's not a good dog, but yeah, they have a dog. So I got their little pink dog bed in, and then I also gave them a little dog toy box. They don't really have one of those, but I figured if anyone wanted to play in this house with their with like a family that had a dog, they would probably want that. So I went ahead and put that in there. Also, I don't think anyone would want to play in this house. It's not like I mean, it's decently playable. I actually added an extra bathroom because the house, like the floor plans I was looking at of the house, only showed one bathroom, and this is a house for 5 people. So I gave them a full bath and a half bath, which I thought was pretty decent. But yeah, that is like not enough for 5 people in my opinion. I think that might be kind of a challenge to play in, but it's okay. You'll figure it out. I'm not going to play in it. I don't know why I'm saying we, but if you decide to play in it, you'll figure it out. You can always like, this is the thing with this house. Like, I made it so that the outside looked nice because I was gonna like take screenshots and I was trying to recreate it. But if someone wanted to play in it, they could very easily just like extend certain sections of the house to make it more playable, because at that point it's like if you're using it for personal use, I don't think it matters as much if it's like super exact. So that's just what I think. And here's where I took a little bit of creative freedom. Like, they don't really have that like hutch thing that I put there, and those curtains are actually a very similar color to the curtains that they have in other rooms of the house, which is why I thought it was okay. And they also don't have a dog food bowl there that I know of, but I decided to put one there anyway because Snuffles needs to eat. We're not gonna let Snuffles die in this house. And we also had a bunch of cabinets above that. At first I wanted to put the cabinets that had like the open not doors, but you know what I mean, like where you can see the stuff on the shelves, but I realized they don't have any of those in their house, so I decided not to do that. And their kitchen is also a little bit longer than the one that I had, which is kind of funny because the room is very long, but the way that the arches are, it made it so that the kitchen space was a little bit more smushed than it was supposed to be. So we just kind of worked with it. I have all of the appliances that they have in their kitchen in this house, but they're not quite in the same spot. Like, their microwave was on the same side of the kitchen as the stove, but I had just put it next to the sink because that's where I had room. So there's that. And doing Rick's room was really fun. This little like science lab area, I turned on I used like the show hidden objects cheat so I could take in some of the items from Get to Work that came with the scientist career, because there were a lot of cool things in there. Like, there's a wormhole generator and like he goes through wormholes a lot in the show, so that was fun to put in. I thought about putting a bar in here because he's an alcoholic, so I thought that he needed a bar out here. I ended up deleting it and just putting some counters in there to put some other stuff on, and we get a little globe bar that I put in his bedroom because there's no bar in the house, but he's always like drinking, so I figured that we needed something to represent that, so we get that in his bedroom. And around this time is where I was thinking, like, I'm almost done with this, like I just have to finish the garage and like do a couple things on the outside and then we'll be good to go. But then I realized that I didn't do Rick's bedroom, so we're gonna jump into that after this. And picking wall colors for this was actually harder than I thought it was gonna be, because those panels that I used on 2 sides of the garage, when I used them behind those little like metal beams, it didn't look right, so I ended up not going with that. But Rick's room is very cluttered and disorganized, so we got some boxes of clutter in there, and I put some electronics over there because from one of the pictures I was looking at, he has a bunch of like electronics just kind of like shoved in the corner of the room. So we got that going. And he also has on one of his walls, he has like a bunch of stuff all over the walls, like papers that he's like tacked up, and there's a lot of like string going between them, like he's connecting different ideas, and he has all this, he basically just uses his wall as like a giant brainstorming board. And yeah, I thought that the best I could represent that was like with just putting a bunch of like random posters and like deteriorating poster things that came with cats and dogs, because his papers aren't the nicest. But yeah, I also gave him a double bed because I felt like he deserved one, even though he only has a single bed in the show. And I tried to give him this modern one, but then I realized that his bed is literally like a cot, so I think we end up getting in the bed that I used before, like the air mattress one, because his bed is like so pathetic. If you go look up screenshots of it, or I might put one in here, I don't know. But yeah, it's the saddest looking bed. So poor Rick. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I think we're almost done now. I don't have too much left to do. I might be doing some things in the backyard now. I don't really know what I'm even doing anymore, but yeah, I hope that you enjoyed it. Oh, we got to get in the essentials, you know, don't want to forget those. And yeah, I guess we are just finishing off the backyard. But I hope that you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already, and let me know if you like seeing these cartoon houses. Let me know if you watch Rick and Morty, like, for sure, and even if you like don't watch it, do you still enjoy watching these even if you haven't seen the show? Yeah, I would just like to know. So let me know all those things in the comments, and thanks for watching. Bye.
I turned myself into a pickle, Morty! Boom! Big reveal, I'm a pickle. What do you think about that? I turned myself into a pickle! I'm Pickle Rick!
Welcome to McDonald's, can I take your order?
Yeah, I'd like to get a 10-piece McNugget and a bunch of the Szechuan sauce. Like, as much as you're allowed to give me. As much as you're allowed to give me. As much as you're allowed to give me. Szechuan sauce, and it's delicious. And it's delicious. Szechuan sauce, and it's delicious. And it's delicious. Szechuan sauce, and it's delicious. And it's delicious. Szechuan sauce.